CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny is in Jackson, Wyoming. Jeff, this was a landslide victory for Trump-endorsed Harriet Hageman, and we should note, not so long ago, she was a political ally of Liz Cheney's. Obviously not the case now.
Well, Brianna, definitely that is one of the many evolutions here that we have learned in this Wyoming race. Harriet Hageman actually introduced Liz Cheney when she was first running for Congress back in 2016 as my friend and as a proven conservative. Of course, Liz Cheney won that race the same night that Donald Trump won in 2016. So much has changed inside the Republican Party since then, and we really learned how much with that margin of defeat from Liz Cheney. They knew that they were on the way to losing the primary, but the margin was certainly something that surprised many Cheney supporters. But they do, of course, already turning the page. We're learning this morning exactly what Liz Cheney's next steps are going to be for now. Overnight, her campaign filed papers with the Federal Election Committee to create a leadership PAC that allows her simply to raise and spend money traveling across the country to do what she wants to do to take on the former president. She's calling the leadership PAC the Great Task. But she said on the Today Show this morning, just a short time ago, about her plans for 2024.
Are you thinking about running for president?
That's a decision that I'm going to make in the coming months, Savannah. I'm not going to make any announcements here this morning, but it is something that I'm thinking about, and I'll make a decision in the coming months.
So when she says the coming months, that means after she leaves her congressional seat. So for the next 4 months, she is going to be in Congress, of course, as the vice chair of the January 6th committee. And I'm told by people familiar with her thinking is that she does not want to make an announcement right now as the committee is still doing its work. She, of course, is leading the charge on that. But if she would decide to run, that would come next year. And again, back to the title of the Great Task. Of course, she is referring to Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address when he talked about the challenges facing the country, the Great Task. And that was in her speech last evening as well, a speech that was infused with history. But now history for her is that her congressional seat will come to a close at the end of this year, and it really is the end of a legacy for the Cheney family here in Wyoming as well. Her father and mother, Lynn Cheney, were watching her speech last night, just a short distance from the stage, and I was looking at them as they were looking at their daughter, and certainly the end of an era for the Cheneys in a very different Republican Party here in Wyoming and indeed across the country.
Joining us now to discuss, CNN Chief National Correspondent and the anchor of Inside Politics, John King.
Morning.
Good morning. It's so great to have you on this day. Can you just put into context this moment in history where you go from Liz Cheney 2 years ago winning by more than she wins with more than 70% of the vote, and here she gets creamed with a spread of more than 30%, even though she has Democrats going to her side.
She stood up to Trump, and Trump got 70% of the vote in conservative Wyoming, and this is the defining fight in the Republican Party right now. She knew it. She knew it. As she explained last night, she had a choice. She had a choice. Join her leader, Kevin McCarthy, in the House, join the leadership in telling a lie, repeating a lie, supporting a lie that somehow Donald Trump was cheated in 2020, or stand up for it. So I'm more fascinated by the next chapter. This was Wyoming is Wyoming. To Jeff's point, yes, hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, independents and Democrats switch parties to stand with Liz Cheney, but there just aren't enough of them. It's not going to happen in Wyoming.
So the what's next is fascinating. And we just had some news a few minutes ago. Liz Cheney, in an interview with Savannah Guthrie, said she's not about to make an announcement, but in a way she did. She said, I'm deciding right now whether I'm going to run for president. And that is declaring something.
It is. So the first contest for the Republican nomination is 17 or 18 months away. She would have to make a decision, obviously, months and months before that to organize. So everybody should think about that, and everybody should watch that. That's the big flashing light. I'm much more interested in the next 3-4 months. What she said last night in her speech, I urge all Americans not to vote for election deniers. So now she has this super PAC. She has tens of millions of dollars left over that she raised in the Wyoming race. Can they prove it? This is the test. You will learn about what you can do. Can you move voters? Can you beat Trump? Can you beat election deniers? You'll know a lot more about that terrain in 2024 if you try it and play hard in 2022. So will they raise money? Will they run ads? And then can they and go out in states to campaign? And can you convince enough Republicans in battleground states like Arizona, like Pennsylvania, elsewhere, to not support Republican candidates? Can you convince Republicans this is more important And so, can you switch the House there? No. I think the dynamics in the House seem pretty clear, although let's watch. But you could make an impact in some very key governor's races and some very key Senate races, and it's a laboratory, if you will.
So you think this is a test run to see how much of a spoiler she can be?
Yeah, she does not waste words. So why did she say that last night? I urge all Americans, meaning Republicans, really, and independents who are up in play in a midterm election year. Normally, it's, there's a Democrat in the White House. Therefore, his party gets punished in the midterm election year. But she was looking straight ahead and saying, this is a moment. This is a moment of choosing. The Republican moment of choosing about Trump will come in 2024. There's a lot of time between now and then. In our business and in politics, sometimes we're always trying to skip chapters. We're in the middle of a pretty fascinating drama. I think we should go one page at a time.
What would make her say, no, I'm not going to run against Trump, if she felt perhaps she was going to actually just play the foil and help him?
So there are serious conversations among Liz Cheney, Larry Hogan, people like that about what does it take? What if a bunch of us ran as anti-Trump candidates? Do we need just one? What's going to happen? The first question is, Mike Pence is going to be in New Hampshire this morning at the Politics and Eggs breakfast. What does he say after this? Does it make him more defiant, and do you more stand up to Trump, or do you say, wow, look what just happened in Wyoming? Trump is the tail that wags the dog. I'm getting back in line, and I'm going to mute myself. So if you're watching, does Ron DeSantis, if Trump runs, does Ron DeSantis have the courage to run? How many others have the courage to run? And so then you're looking there as the anti-Trumper. Donald Trump won because you had those 16 candidates at the beginning of the race. You had Rubio, you had Bush, you had Cruz, you had Rand Paul. And Trump won early on because he was getting 30% of the vote. Well, if there's a whole bunch of Trumpy candidates, Trump-like candidates, and one anti-Trumper runs, a strong anti-Trumper, you can get 25%. You can get 30, maybe you can get 30. That's why I think the 22 test. How much can you get? How can you learn how much you can get as you head into 2024? Plus, let's just be honest. We have no idea what Trump will look like in 16 or 17 or 18 months. In part because of all the investigations, in part because you do find Republicans who support what he says, who deny the election, which is just wrong, who just say, though, but can he win again? Can he win again? For all the mocking of Joe Biden, they do. In a dark room, when they're not on camera, Republicans have to realize Joe Biden beat Donald Trump. And he beat him pretty good. That's
the Mike Pence argument. That's the argument from Pence world that they'll whisper to you, which is, Trump lost.
Right. It's just, look, I'm fascinated by it. This is what I do. So I could stay at the map all day long looking at 2024 states, and which primaries could Liz Cheney do well in? Could she deny Trump this? I think the biggest challenge is just, that's exciting, that's interesting, but it's way too far down the road to have anyone who tells you they know what's going to happen here. Ignore them, because we don't know. We just live in these incredibly volatile times. It's the same people who said, we're not ready for a black president. There's no way Donald Trump can win the Republican nomination. Okay, that was a fluke, but there's no way he can win the presidency. Oh, Joe Biden's done in 2020. There's no way he can win. Just remember all that and just take it one day at a time.
When she said last night, she evoked Lincoln and the fact that he lost House and Senate races before going on to be president. Did you take that to mean that she was likening herself to Lincoln? Or did you take that, maybe it's both, to mean that she was saying to Republicans, look at the long game. Just because you lose the battle doesn't mean you shouldn't keep your eye on winning the war?
I think both. Both. I think she was trying to say some fights are worth fighting, taking the risk, even if you may lose. Lincoln did not in the end. The Union survived, but it was a risk. And the other thing is, like, Republicans, please, 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 this is a proud party with a great legacy and a great history. Can we have it back, please? Yes, we don't live in the age of Abraham Lincoln, but what happened to smaller government? What happened to market solutions? Where are the market solutions, for example? If Joe Biden signed a huge policy achievement yesterday, you can like it or not like it at home, depending on your politics. It's a huge policy achievement. It does big things in healthcare. For the first time, makes these giant investments in climate. Republicans all voted no. Liz Cheney wants the Republicans to have a plan. Right? Here's a market approach to the healthcare solutions. Here's a market approach to climate. That's what we need in the country. Big policy debates about big challenges, and then let them vote. And we'll see what happens. Then you have elections. We're gone. The Republican Party is not a policy-driven party anymore, an ideological party anymore. It's a Trump party, and it's a grievance party. It's a party built on the idea that Joe Biden's not a legitimate president, which is just not factual. They have stood on that ground, quicksand, longer than many people thought they could, but eventually you sink in quicksand.